Welcome to this presentation prepared by the Retirement Services Division that discusses how we calculate service credit. In this video, we will discuss the different types of service credit and what is used in those calculations. But before we get started, a quick disclaimer. While this presentation is designed to answer most of the questions we have on this retirement topic, it is important to remember that we do not cover every tiny detail. In the unlikely event the information in this presentation conflicts, the applicable retirement statutes, regulations, and decided cases that construe them are the true governing law. In this presentation, we will cover the different factors used in calculating retirement benefits. For most employees, there are three important factors used in the measurement of a member's benefit, and we have a video presentation on each of these topics. As mentioned earlier, this presentation will discuss how we calculate your service credit. There are three different measurements for service credit. The first two measurements determine eligibility to retire. They are actual state service and vesting state service. These two calculations are used to determine whether you have met the minimum service requirement to be eligible to retire. The last measurement is credited service. Credited service is used to calculate the monetary benefit when you retire. For most state employees, all three service credit totals are likely the same. But if you have had any part-time service or purchased time for additional service credit, or you left state service and came back within a year of your separation, then your service credit totals for actual, vesting, and credited would be different. Remember, actual and vesting equal eligibility. Credited equals money. Actual state service. Only periods of time where you were physically paid by the state count as actual state service. Since time purchased is generally not time that you are physically working and paid actual earnings from a state agency, purchase time would not count as actual state service. Vesting is perhaps the most liberal of the three measurements. Vesting service includes all actual state service and most purchase time. In addition, if you separated from state service and returned within a year of your separation, breaks in service of less than 1 year also count as vesting service. The only exception to this would be Tier 1, which does not have that provision. Credited service is very similar to actual state service, but under this calculation, if you were part-time, we would also adjust your service credit total to reflect the full-time equivalent that you worked for the state. Also, if you purchased additional credit, all eligible time would also be added to your credited service. For more information on purchases, please watch our separate video on purchase time. Let's start with the basics. First, when we calculate your service credit, we include all paid state employment in pension eligible positions and which were not followed by a permanent break in service. If you were out on workers' compensation, payments you received for lost wages prior to reaching maximum medical improvement also count for retirement credit. When you leave state service, you will get paid for any remaining unused vacation time. That time will be added to your service credit. Note, if you are in a hazardous duty position, while we can use this time in calculating your monetary benefit, this payout may not be used to make you eligible for hazardous duty retirement. If you were in a position that took advantage of a voluntary schedule reduction program, after this program was established by the legislature on June 9, 1994, you get free credit from that date forward as long as unpaid leave under this program is properly documented. Some employees may have taken advantage of a similar program before this program was added to the state statutes, and you can purchase that pre-June 9, 1994 time under the same provision as qualifying leaves without pay. See our presentation on retirement purchases for more information. In addition, if you have completed a purchase or been approved for additional credit, such as credit for military service, that too will count towards making you eligible for normal or early retirement. One last point. For those of you who are retiring under a hazardous duty retirement, any non-hazardous duty service you performed will not count towards your eligibility to retire hazardous duty, but that time won't get lost. That non-hazardous duty service will count above and beyond to determine how much you will be paid in retirement. Excluded from your service credit are any non-qualifying or non-purchased unpaid leaves of absence without pay. Also excluded are those workers' compensation payments that are not for lost wages but are paid after reaching your maximum medical improvement date, the specific indemnity award payments. Also, if you were in a contributory plan, and starting in 2017, even the Tier 2 plan became contributory from that point forward, periods of time where retirement contributions were not made do not count for retirement credit. This also would include situations where members left state service, were not vested, and took a refund of all contributions and interest. If they return to work and do not restore the contributions and interest they withdrew, the previous time will not count. There are also some positions that are not eligible for retirement plan membership. Time worked in those ineligible positions would not count towards service credit. If you had part-time service, you should know that when calculating your benefit, we will ignore your part-time schedule to determine your eligibility to retire. However, when calculating your monetary benefit, your service credit will be adjusted to reflect the part-time schedule you worked. For example, an employee named Henry works a 50% schedule for the state for 10 years. When we calculate his eligibility to retire, we would use the 10 years of date-to-date service regardless of the schedule he worked. But when we calculate the monetary benefit, we would adjust that monetary benefit to reflect that he only worked 50% for those 10 years of time, which would equate to 5 years of credited service. There were a few things touched upon in the presentation that may warrant greater detail. First, to clarify some terminology. What is a permanent break? A permanent break in service occurs when a member leaves state service, is not vested when they leave, returns to state service at a later period, and that period of separation equals or exceeds the time they were previously employed by the state, or 5 years, whichever is greater. Next, the service credit totals your agency has for seniority, longevity, etc. may differ from your retirement service credit. The calculation for some of these are different and are dependent on the rules in the members' union contracts. Your agency is the best resource for determining service credit totals not related to retirement. Some common examples of why service credit totals are different include some positions in government are not permitted to participate in the pension plan, but some of that time might be used by agencies to calculate longevity, sometimes seniority, etc. The reverse is also true. As discussed earlier, there are some purchase opportunities specific for getting retirement credit, but might not count with your agency for seniority, longevity, etc. Additionally, retiree health insurance eligibility is also a separate calculation. One example would be an employee who is employed part-time and less than a 50% schedule. That time might be excluded in some cases for the eligibility measurement for retiree health insurance eligibility. Lastly, the calculation for your pension benefit is calculated using years and months. If your service credit is 24 years, 11 months, and 26 days, the benefit calculation is based on 24 years and 11 months. This concludes the presentation on service credit. We hope you found this helpful and feel free to refer to our other instructional videos for information on additional retirement topics. Thank you very much.